Hey, I'm La, and welcome back. This is What If Tatsumi Was Archer's Reincarnation Part 3, and let's begin. It was the next day, and nothing much would really happen, as Night Raid didn't have any missions, and there wasn't any unusual activity in the capital. So Tatsumi would spend his time making breakfast, talking with Shell, quote-unquote patrolling the capital with Mai, and do some sparring with Block and Akame, as Tatsumi would be happy just being able to spend his time with Night Raid, getting to know them better as he now had new friends that he could protect, and make sure all of them would see this through the end and be alive. Next, 1 week later, Tatsumi and Leone were assigned to assassinate a group of drug dealers who have been drugging large groups of women, and Shell and Mine were also assigned to a different mission on the same night. They all agreed and got ready to move out, with Tatsumi and Leone leaving 5 minutes earlier to their own mission. They then arrived at a building 30 minutes after leaving the base and successfully infiltrated the building without getting caught. They were hiding inside a ceiling, seeing a bunch of women all drowsy and lightheaded, being surrounded by some purple mist. The men they saw in the room were the ones who did this, and immediately jumped to the floor, killing all the guards and men that were involved with the drug dealing. They then opened all the windows and doors, so the purple mist would be aired out, which would eventually make the woman conscious again, and left the scene not get caught, and arriving at a pad just to talk to each other as they were heading back to the base. Around a kilometer away from where they were, Mine and Shell had just finished their own mission, and were running on a path, getting as far away as possible from the scene, until suddenly a female in armor and a large dog-like monster jumped in front of them, creating a large crater in the ground. The woman then brought out a wanted poster of Shell and looked at the two girls. So you're Shell, and I assume the other girl is a member of Night Raid. So, in the name of justice, I will kill both of you to avenge my mentor Ogre, Seryu said in a loud, maniacal voice. The fight then started, with Mine trying to shoot Seryu, but all the blasts were blocked by the monster, which was called Kuro. It did receive damage, but it quickly regenerated, with Mine saying it's organic type Imperial armed, and the only way to kill organic types was to destroy their core. The fight then proceeded with Kuro charging into their direction, with Shell blocking the attacks with her giant scissors, Mine attacking both him and the ground in order to create a smoke screen. Seryu then blew on a whistle, which would be used to alert reinforcements. Mine and Shell knew they had to end the fight quickly, so they used the smoke screen to their advantage, to which Shell snuck up on Seryu in order to fight her alone, which led to them fighting in an area surrounded by trees, grass, and bushes, just outside the path while Mine was fighting Kuro. It's now Tatsumi's point of view, and he had a bad feeling for some reason that he felt a chill down his spine, as if something bad was about to happen. Hey Leone, I'm gonna check on Mine and Shell, I have a bad feeling. Leone then decided to go with him, as she was on edge and worried after what Tatsumi said. They first had to look for them, which Tatsumi jumped up and climbed to the highest building, looking at all directions, to see Mine being crushed by the hand of a large, giant, red monster-like dog standing on its two legs, and was about to shoot it with his bow and arrow, but saw Shell, who seemed to have suffered some serious damage, cut the beast's arm that was holding Mine. Tatsumi was relieved and told Leone they were southeast 1 kilometer from here, so Leone immediately ran to that direction. When he turned back, he saw to his horror Shell's legs all the way to her knees had been bitten off. Apparently what happened was that Seryu was still alive and used a gun hiding in her mouth to shoot Shell in the back, to which Kuro used this opportunity to eat Shell whole. Shell used all her might to dodge the attack, but both her legs were eaten by the beast. Just as about the beast was to eat her a second time, hundreds and hundreds of explosive arrows came from southeast from where they were. The light and explosions were overwhelming the beast so much that it backed up a few feet away from Mine and Shell, with Shell lying on the ground, breathing heavily, barely hanging on to life. Tatsumi was still not done, and shoot more and more arrows, and only at the monster and the ground to create a smoke screen big enough to cover the whole area, as Leone would arrive 5 seconds later to see mine and Shell barely hanging on to life, and used the smoke screen to her advantage to carry both Shell and mine, but didn't have enough time to collect Shell's Imperial arms. Leone would then leave from the scene, with Shell and mine, as reinforcements would arrive a minute later. Tatsumi then went to the direction Leone was heading as fast as possible to meet her a minute later in an isolated location in the forest, where he saw Shell lying on the ground, breathing slowly, covered with bruises and cuts, and their legs bitten off, being bandaged up by the fabric of Mine's torn up dress, slowly bleeding out, with Mine on her knees beside Shell, bawling her eyes out, saying, "Shell, please don't die," with Leone standing behind, telling Tatsumi that Shell won't make it, and that she sustained too much damage and lost too much blood, that it was a miracle that she survived for this long, all while having a look of defeat on her face. Tatsumi walked slowly towards Shell, all while having a look of shock and dread, kneeled beside her, holding her hand, thinking to himself he failed to keep his promise, wanting all of them to see this through, as he gathered all his memory. But before that, he didn't want to see Shell die. "You can't die. You can't die. I won't let you," Tatsumi thought to himself, as he gathered all his memories of times he's seen healing magic performed. The most prominent one was when Rin used the mana inside her pendant to heal his heart when he was stabbed by Lancer. Tatsumi knew he had way more mana than the pendant, but rarely used healing magic to heal serious injuries, much less regenerate entire limbs. "You won't die, Shell," Tatsumi said, with Mine and Leone looking at him, and Mine yelling at Tatsumi, saying, "What are you talking about? Can't you see? Didn't you hear? She's already sustained too much damage. Be quiet, Mine," Tatsumi shouted, as he then proceeded to stretch out his hand, with his magic circuits glowing more and more brighter around his body when he touched Shell's thighs with both of his hands. She suddenly started to glow with the color beyond neon greenish blue light, as both Mine and Leone were absolutely shocked when they saw Shell glow, and also seeing her bruises and cuts slowly fading away. But they were even more surprised and shocked when they saw that the bandages on Shell's legs were slowly undoing themselves, as they saw that her legs were slowly regenerating. Tatsumi could feel himself getting more lightheaded, as he never released this much magic out of his body, and he never really needed to, but it wasn't enough, so Tatsumi put more and more mana to his healing to make the regeneration a lot faster, with Shell's breathing becoming more steady and her face looking less pale than before, as the bruises and cuts around her body were completely healed. Tatsumi was so lightheaded and his body was in so much strain that he was barely conscious of what he was doing. As of after a couple of seconds later, Shell's body was completely healed, but Tatsumi wanted to see her face. He slowly stood up, barely able to stand, and walked to Shell, kneeling down beside her, holding her hand against his face, as Shell slightly opened her eyes to see Tatsumi crying tears of joy, with him saying, "Thank God you're alive." As Tatsumi would soon pass out, with the only thing he would hear is his name from both Mine and Leone, which then led to Shell going back to closing her eyes. It was morning, at around 11 a.m., and Tatsumi would wake up in his bed, feeling a bit sluggish, but pushed that aside when he remembered about what happened the other night, and was about to rush out of his room, until he noticed that both Mine and Shell were in his room, with Mine sleeping on the futon and Shell sitting on a chair with Shell's head laying on Tatsumi's bed, sleeping peacefully. Tatsumi was so relieved and felt so much joy when he saw both Shell and Mine safe and sound. I wonder if this is how Kiritsugu felt when he saved me, Tatsumi thought to himself. As Tatsumi was reminiscing about the thought, Shell slowly woke up from her slumber to see Tatsumi sitting up on his bed, to then immediately hugging him, yelling his name, "Tatsumi," to which made Mine jump up from her sleep to see Shell hugging Tatsumi, crying tears of relief. A couple of minutes later, the other members of Night Raid rushed into Tatsumi's room when they heard Shell yell at Tatsumi's name. They all went to his room to see what happened, to see Shell hugging Tatsumi, and Mine looking at them with a small smile on her face. Shell eventually got off Tatsumi, and Tatsumi stood up from his bed to see everyone else besides Najida have both a look of relief and concern. "You really had us worried, Mine finally spoke as she got up from her futon. Tatsumi apologized and asked how long he's been out, to which Akame said almost 2 days. Tatsumi was a little surprised by this, but it did make sense as he had never really attempted to heal anyone by releasing such high mana, not as if he had high mana to begin with. He then noticed Mine had an arm sling, that she must have broken her arm when being crushed by that monster. Tatsumi then asked Shell to let him see her arm. To ask Mine to let him see her arm, to which she did, and put her hand on her, making her body glow the same neon greenish blue color, and her arm was fully healed. All the members of Night Raid were shocked when they saw this, besides Leone, Shell, and Mine. So what they said was true. "You really can heal people," Kame said. "Apparently I can," Tatsumi responded. But Tatsumi then had a sad look on his face. "If I had this power before, I made it in time to Sayo and Ieyasu. They wouldn't have had to die," Tatsumi said with a bit of remorse. "Well, now that you do, I didn't have to die thanks to you, Tatsumi," Shell said. "Yeah, you're right. You're welcome, Shell." The members of Night Raid became more intrigued with Tatsumi, especially Mine and Shell, as they grew a huge respect for Tatsumi and a bit of a liking to him. They all left his room with Leone staying behind, telling Tatsumi that she was thankful for if it wasn't for his hunch, those two wouldn't have survived, and she told him that both of them barely left his side until he would wake up. He left the room with Tatsumi feeling a bit touched, knowing that he has good friends who care for him deeply. 5 days later, Tatsumi's relationship with Night Raid grew even further, especially with Mine and Shell. Tatsumi actually gave Shell a new pair of giant scissors, which she projected as her new imperial arms that was just as sharp and durable as her older one, but slightly lighter to make it easier to carry and make her attacks faster. "I can't accept this, you've already done so much for me," Shell said, trying to refuse the gift. "It's alright, I created loads of weapons anyways. Besides, I made this one specifically for you. I want no one else besides you to have it." Shell started blushing by hearing those words and accepted the gift. Tatsumi would then spend the rest of those days training, cooking, talking with the other members of Night Raid, or going to the capital with either Leone or Mine, or Lubbock, as Mine's face was already revealed in the wanted poster, and Shell was said to be dead by Seryu, as she thought she wouldn't have to have survived such damage and bloodlust to quote-unquote patrol the area and sometimes visit local restaurants and clothing stores. Once those 5 days were over, Najida got word that Esdet had arrived at the capital with her subordinates, and been committing mass murders in different parts of the country, framing the incidents on Night Raid. So all the members were tasked with different jobs to get information or eliminate anyone involved in the mass murders, with Tatsumi and Bullock infiltrating a ship to look for any suspicious individuals. Tatsumi went undercover as a guest, wearing a formal red and black suit, and Bullock wore a curcio to turn invisible, and look around the ship for any suspicious activity. All was going pretty well until suddenly Tatsumi had a strange feeling something was going to happen, as he was on his guard. Just then, the ship was filled with the sound of someone playing a flute, and suddenly all the guests started passing out, with Tatsumi feeling a little bit distorted, but still managed to make his way outside the deck to get away from the sound and regain some of his composure. A minute later, a large man with blonde hair wearing a black uniform came out. "If you stayed past that, I actually would have spared you," the man said as he walked out. "I'm assuming you're a member of Night Raid. Guess I have to kill you now." Tatsumi projected Honcho and Bakia, wanting to use a bit of magic. He decided to use reinforcement magic on himself, which made his body glow in magic circuits. Whoa, you seem like a strong opponent. I'm gonna get so many experience points for this. Before he can finish speaking, Tatsumi already blitzed towards him with his swords, having more mana than usual. The man just barely able to block by a hair, but it was pointless, as when he did block, his weapon broke due to the impact, and Tatsumi killed the man with a downward X slice. Almost immediately, two figures jumped towards Tatsumi wearing the same uniform, trying to kill him, but Bullock punched and kicked both of them away, while wearing Incursio. The two figures got up, with one of them being a boy with yellow hair and the other being a somewhat old man with silver hair. Tatsumi was to take care of the boy, and Bullock wanted to fight the old man, as he knew this person as General Lever back in the day when he was with the capital's army. As they both approached their opponents activated their imperial arms, with Levers being able to manipulate the surrounding body of water, and for the boy making him a lot buffer and taller, increasing his strength and speed drastically. "Let's go," Bullock and Tatsumi said simultaneously, as they both charged towards their opponents. And that's it for part 3. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you later. Peace.